most critical component for a motorcycle travel would definitely be, how you plan your budget. And it's very important that, you set aside as much money that you think that you would need, plus a 10 to 15% contingency to, overall put together. The largest expense for a motorcycle ride is definitely the fuel, depending on how many kilometers you want to cover, factored by your mileage of your motorcycle. Don't go on the highest just because, your motorcycle would give you about 35 kilometers to a liter. I would ideally say factor in about 28 kilometers to a liter and park as much money that you would require, plus a 15% contingency towards the fuel part of it. The next biggest expense on a travel, in case a person like me, I definitely would walk into a hotel to provide me the accommodation, because after a long day's ride, I definitely need a warm water bath. And this is something, I would factor in as the next biggest cost after the fuel. The third cost would be your food. Now, this is an area where I would ideally choose to go absolutely local. I mean, these are areas where travel helps us to, dine and taste the local cuisines, which is very important. The very essence of a travel, to mingle with, the locals and relish the kind of food that they would eat. Now, if you are a veggie, I am a non-vegetarian, but ideally, I would stick to the vegetarian bit when I'm traveling, unless I'm doubly sure that I can digest the meat that I'm eating. But otherwise, 95% it will be a vegetarian diet. It can have salads or bread or eggs for that matter, and anything that I find that there's not much of meat in it. But push comes to shove, kuch bhi chalega. That's the essence of travel. I mean, you could be prepared for anything and ensure that you have a strong gut. I mean, these are things where, you need to be doubly cautious about, that you don't get stomach upset and, that can actually ground you. Other than this, the 15% contingency that I had indicated should probably take care of most of the other unforeseen expenses. Of course, in some places you have tolls that you need to pay. Some places are really expensive. But in India, there are hardly any tolls except one or two roads that I know of which charge tolls for a two-wheeler. But otherwise, generally, it's all free for travel on a two-wheeler. But international, yes, the toll comes in almost neck and neck with what I would ideally spend for accommodation. So that's a big vertical to factor in when we are trying to do adventures beyond boundaries. Other than that, yes, pre-preparation, your visas. Some are expensive, some are really expensive. Most of them are free. Most of them, when I say, in case, India has a reciprocative, diplomatic, agreement with those countries, like Argentina, it's a free visa for us. Senegal, it's a free visa for Indians, and there's so many others. But mostly they are in the 3 to 12,000 rupees for generally most of the visas, including the US visa or the UK visa for that matter. There are some expensive ones which I haven't really come across, but there are. But generally, these are the expenses these are pre-preparation verticals that you need to factor in. And these are all incidentals, and you cannot avoid getting away from these things. One thing that I would ideally add on an international scale, there's a global average. $110 per day should actually take care of all these things. Now, how much you're gonna save by saving on anything is entirely up to you. Like, there's no way you can save on fuel because you need to travel and you need to fuel your bike. But you can definitely save on accommodation. You can definitely save on tolls by clicking on Google and saying, no highways, avoid tolls. So these are options that can take you off the grid of the toll highways. So you're going to save a lot of money by not riding on the tollways. These are the two things that I guess, you can save a little bit, which can actually build up your contingency. But trust me, in case you get into repairs, that's where your contingency can go a little haywire, because tires are something that you need to factor in. Your engine oil is something that you need to factor in for a service. That's, once in 10,000 kilometers, let's say, in case your ride is over 10,000 kilometers, so your oil comes into play, your tires come into play. These are factors that, you need to, factor in your dollars towards getting that right. So just for the fear of not getting stranded because you have not factored in these bit. So make sure you have factored in these These are unforeseen costs immediately, but they are definitely to be planned.